Good afternoon, LinkedIn. My name is Dominic. I run Streeem, with the UK's first iPhone-only multi-camera live stream and event video production company. Over the last couple of weeks, myself and my good friend Sandra Thompson have been talking all things customer experience. We've had a number of guests on, and I'm going to post links to the last couple of shows that we've done with some fabulous guests, and today's no exception. Rather than just have me do all of the talking today, me doing the talking in the introduction, I'm going to bring Sandra straight in. So by the wonders of technology, I'm hoping, Sandra, I will be able to bring you in just a second. So if we do that and we do that. Sandra, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm really well. I'm almost so excited. I can't even speak. We've got a list of people coming on, but I have to say you guys are in for a treat. I met Adrian a number of years ago, and he's one of those critical friends where I go to him and I say, I've got this idea. And then all of a sudden, all this stuff comes and I just can't write fast enough. So Adrian Swinscoe, I would say that he describes himself as a speaker, as the author, as a podcast genius, and general controversial, provocative CX advocate for all things good, and just making sure everyone is checking in and not going with the status quo. But I'm going to let Adrian introduce himself in just a second, but I just want to say thank you most sincerely to Adrian for his time, because I know that he's stacked busy. Adrian, welcome to LinkedIn Live.
Hey Sandra, hey Dominic, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to just ask you to introduce yourself, if you wouldn't mind. I'm very keen that you get the opportunity to tell people who you are, because, as I've said a few times, not everyone that watches this will know this subject or know this topic or know the people that are that we're talking to. So just take a couple of minutes. Adrian, tell us who you are, what you do.
So my name's Adrian Swinscoe. I have a background in a number of different things. I'm a trained economist, a trained teacher. I've done both. I've worked in large corporate, and then for the last sort of building sort of businesses, new business kind of propositions. For the last 15 years, I've been working independently, which sort of means I must be doing something reasonably well because I'm not living in a tent. But through that, there's kind of like I've done various kind of things, sort of like, consulted the big corporates around kind of like how to, commercialize some of their technology, tried to do a management buy-in, to nearly became a steel magnet, ladies and gentlemen, which is a completely different story. And then, but for the last kind of 10 years, 11 years now, I've been sort of focusing on service and experience, because I'm a real fan of organizations that do good things for both their customers and their kind of people. And that's the sort of thing that I'm really, really interested in. And because it all really started with, I just don't like bad service. And it frustrates me how many organizations get in the way of their people in their ability to deliver good service to their customers. Yeah. And so how that manifests itself is that I write my blog. I've got a Forbes column. I got a podcast. I've written 3 books. What else? I speak, I advise, I do run workshops, I do different things. I mean, you know what? Here's the thing. I am incredibly grateful to have the ability to be able to do stuff that I like with people that I like.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I would say exactly the same for doing what I do, and the opportunity to do this with people that I probably wouldn't have otherwise ever had reasons to work with. It's great.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, and also to kind of like to Sandra's kind of first kind of point is like a critical friend is I think that I might be becoming kind of like yeah, I'm not I wouldn't say Grinch, but cantankerous. Cantankerous is a beautiful word, and I think there's sometimes a need for it just to kind of call out some of the the crap that gets kind of like pitched around the place, and to be able to kind of go, turn around and go like, really? Do you really think that?
Yeah.
Is that really does that really matter? Is that going to really solve the kind of the problems that you're facing? Going to make things kind of better for you both, your customers, your people, and so I guess my kind of point is that all of this is that I really, really admire like companies that produce great service and great experience for both their customers and their employees, and the hard work it takes to to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm also a fan of the new innovations and new technology and new ways of working, all these different sort of things. But I'm not a fan of Kool-Aid.
Okay.
Right. And there's a lot of Kool-Aid and a lot of different people around selling lots of different flavors of different types of Kool-Aid. And there's a lot of people getting high on Kool-Aid. Right. No disrespect to Kool-Aid, because I'm pretty sure that it's a nice thing. But there's a lot of people kind of like selling the answer, as it were. And I'm a bit like going, please stop, because there's no such thing as the answer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now.
That's fine. I'm going to interject very briefly and let Sandra take over, because we are live. This is live on LinkedIn. And the reason that we're doing this isn't just to deliver value and to put some really great content out there, but also to give the opportunity for people who are watching at home or at work or wherever they're watching this right now. And we've already got people there. Let us know where you're watching. Ask questions. Make comments on the topics that we're discussing that Sandra and Adrian get into in just a moment. I will bring those comments in as and when I can. I will ask the questions as and when I can, and if it means interjecting, then I will do so. So, Sandra, it's kind of over to you, because as we know, this is very much your show and your area.
So I think, thank you, Dominic, thank you, Adrian. I think the key thing that I'm really keen for viewers today to get is to get them to just stop for a minute on some of the things that they use as common language, some things that are just flavor of the month, and just with the talent that you have, just get guys to think slightly differently about all of the things that are surrounding them all of the time. So I guess my first question for you, Adrian, is, what is top of mind? What is the thing that is driving you nuts right now? What are you on a mission to get people to stop and think about just for a minute? Over to you.
So you've made me think about something else, Sandra.
Okay. I'm making a note so we come back to that.
Yeah. No. But it's related to what you said, and because you've basically kind of made me think, oh, what's the kind of one thing that we could do? We should start doing, because you talked about common language and jargon and all that type of stuff. And I wonder, and this is a question, and both I guess a question and a challenge, is like, I wonder if we could start thinking about how do we improve the service we deliver to our customers and the experience that they get without talking about customer service and customer experience and all the lexicon that goes with all of that sort of stuff. Yeah. I just wonder if we could do that. I wonder if we could just kind of start talking about things in plain language.
So I have a suggestion. Can I throw something in?
Of course.
Great. So my feeling is humanity. And there's a great link in here, I think, around the work that I'm doing on emotional intelligence and people listening. You talk about this quite a lot, and I think that we ignore it. The ability to use some of the skills that we have really brilliantly created before we got into the work environment. So being able to listen really, really fiercely. That's what Tom Peters talks about. So you're so exhausted because you've listened so well, but you've listened out for things that are not being said, the tone of the voice, the body language if you're in presence of people, that empathy with one another, the just respect for one another. If perhaps we could consider just a bit more kindness and thoughtfulness, we wouldn't even need customer experience. That's what I'd like to throw out there. What do you think?
Well, I think the thing that so first of all, 100% agree with you on that. But I think the absolute key thing that you said in there is you talked about, or you alluded to, presence, and how presence is related to the present.
Yeah.
Right. And about being present.
Yeah.
And that's one of the basic kind of challenges when it comes to listening and understanding, is actually thinking about being present. Right. And we find in the society that we're living in, it feels like we find that very, very difficult to be present, to be here and now, as it were. There is a, this is this is how my brain works sometimes, is you end up getting these kind of little asides. There is one of my favorite books is by Aldous Huxley. And it's one of the last books that he wrote, and it's called Island.
Okay.
And it is his almost like version of Utopia, right? And it was based around this island community, and how they deal with kind of almost like not the invasion, but the kind of the impact of outside kind of societies on their kind of island, sort of their island community. And the island community has been kind of like it's based on Mahayana Buddhism, and there's a whole bunch of kind of minor birds that fly and that live on the island, that fly around the island and kind of like sit in the trees. And for some reason, magically, these kind of like minor birds, they chant like, you know, frequently, here and now, here and now, here and now, as like a tap on the shoulder to everybody to go like, kind of like the present is the important kind of like the thing. So anyway, if you haven't read it, you should check it out because it's a really nice book.
I'm actually just finding it on Amazon so that I can put it on the screen for people so that they know what to look for.
Algorithm going, what's happened here? I'm just out.
So, but the point I want to make about being present is that sort of thing around, and then also kind of link into kind of the real answer to the kind of question that you asked about what's top of mind for me right now, is absolutely that point of you as to talk about presence and being present and focusing on the present, because we live in the present, we serve in the present, we experience things in the present. And the thing that bugs me right now, and it sort of does on an annual basis, and this is possibly the kind of Grinch in me coming out, is that when people get to this kind of point, there is the end of the year, we're in November, and then we kind of, you know, going through into December, through to the new year and stuff, and everybody's on the lookout for trends. I'm like, please, no, you know, and because like nobody kind of reviews kind of what trends actually came to be. And I'd be just talking about trends, right? And I'm a bit like going, what's the point, right? Because it feels like then we're living in the future, right? All we're going to do is we're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after or next week or whatever. When actually life and everything that's good and is meaningful happens here and now.
Right now, yeah.
And so I wish, this is my frustration, is I wish we would stop trying to live our life in the future and actually concentrate more on the now. I mean, now, when I say that, we have to balance off, we have to be prepared for the future. We have to keep an eye on the future and everything else.
Yeah.
But I think the balance is all out of whack. It's almost a bit like we're kind of like 70, 80% thinking about what's around the corner and not paying attention to kind of what's kind of happening here and now. And I wish that we could just go and just change the balance and going, ladies and gentlemen, the future is happening right now, and it's happening right in front of you. You know, if you want to do the best thing for your business, is get good at doing now.
Yeah.
In the moment.
I'm going to ask people that are watching for comments on this because I think it's really important to get a bit of a good input on it. We've got, I can't see immediately, 10 or 15 people watching, I think. What's your thoughts on it? What do you feel about living in the present? Does your business live in the present, or is it always perhaps looking too far forward and missing what's right there in front of you?
Do you think then there's also, so when we spoke about this before, the thing that comes to mind that actually I have a problem with is when people say, and I've heard this in conferences recently, so what we'll do is we'll have a look at what's happened before and then we'll plot the future from that. And I can feel myself wanting to explode because I want to say, you have no idea what's going to happen. And please don't look at the past as a blueprint for what's going to happen in the future, because we've got no idea. That's one point I wanted to make. And the second point is that our obsession with the future, I wonder whether that's a result of us not having the ability to have focus in the moment because we are so distracted. Now, there's a load of people who talk about this stuff. You know, there's loads of books on focus, on mindfulness, on a whole bunch of physical exercises we can do to sit in the moment. Do you think there's anything in any of that?
Yes.
How so?
So let me kind of like start by saying sort of two things. So you've got the let me start with the kind of the last thing, the kind of mindfulness sort of stuff, and about distraction and everything else. I think if you look at that, I mean, I look at that and I think about it from an economist perspective, and I think about productivity, and I think about all these different tools that we've got, and how productivity isn't actually at a general kind of level isn't actually going up.
Yeah.
You know, we're supposed to have all this kind of fancy magic tools and everything else, but productivity is going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right, it's about kind of distraction as well. But it's also about choice. And choice kind of related to that kind of mindfulness sort of thing. Guess what kind of mindfulness does? It simplifies stuff, right? Because actually when people talk about focus, they also talk about flow, right? And you get into this zone of flow sort of thing. And here's the thing, you don't get into the zone of flow or into a state of flow when you're doing two things or three things. Yeah. It's only ever about doing one thing at a time.
Yeah. And
I think that's the kind of thing, and it relates to kind of like both kind of individuals about making choices, and it's just as important to choose what not to do as well as what to do.
Yeah.
And when you start adding kind of things, you've probably kind of got to ask yourself, kind of like going, well, if I'm going to add that, what I'm going to stop doing, or what I'm going to stop, and what am I taking away?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just adding complexity to that. And I think the sort of thing is, again, the same sort of principle applies to organizations, is that you go, well, you're going to add this, like it could be another piece of technology, another channel, or kind of wherever else, but you're going to try and manage that with the same sort of level of resources. So you're basically going to try to do more with the same. Mm-hmm. So what you end up doing is you end up with this process of dilution. Yeah. But what you're not doing is you're not actively choosing about what to do and what not to do. I would rather, and it's something I've written about before, I would rather the companies proactively choose to be great at a few things rather than average at a lot. Yeah. And here's the thing, this is kind of, for me, this is like the big competitive secret that is hiding in plain sight. If you look at some of the big leading companies that are out there, is like, they are not everywhere. You know, there is this myth that we should go to where our customers are. You're like going, okay, maybe. But here's also the other kind of thing that we don't acknowledge, is that we know that people will, pay for more for better service, but they will also travel for a better service and a better experience. Yeah, we know that to be true in the physical world, but it's also true in the digital world as well. Is that people will travel physically and digitally for better service, and that's kind of what some of these kind of big brands kind of do, is they go, we're not going to be everywhere, because that doesn't fit our strategy. Yeah. So we're going to choose to be amazing here, here, and here. And guess what? If you don't like it, we're not bothered. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know
and then the second thing I wanted to say, kind of while I'm on a bit of a roll, you talk about kind of like forecasts and extrapolations and all that type of stuff. Here's the interesting thing about forecasts. I know this from my time as being an economist and a forecaster, is all forecasts will be wrong. That's the only thing that you know for certain. Because a forecast can never, because here's the thing, a forecast, we have to think about this, a forecast is an outcome.
Yeah.
It's an outcome of a model that you have of how the world operates based on a set of assumptions. So it really is just an outcome. Mm-hmm. So if you want to actually make your forecasting kind of better, then think about the assumptions and the building blocks that are going into your kind of model kind of sense making.
Just going to jump in and go back on the previous point. Laura May is watching in London. Hello, Laura. I know we're going to be hearing more about your name in just a little while. Sandra will come up on that. Laura said there is a we have always done this fatigue in the business. Ernesto, who is a friend of mine, who lives over in Kentucky in the States, Louisville, Kentucky, says there's the next 2 weeks and there's the next 2 months and so on. For me, the key is to be flexible enough to change plans according to what's needed today.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And while I'm here, Lucy, hello. Thanks for watching. Sorry, Sandra, back to you.
So just coming back for a second then on this point around service. I mean, I drive my car for an hour and a half to take it to a garage where the guy is exceptional and I trust him. I mean, it's balmy because there are hundreds of garages around where I live, but I take that route out because I know that this guy is never going to rip me off and he explains stuff. So I totally
Yeah.
get that. And actually, he doesn't promote. He only does certain things because he's got that base of people who actually do all the promotion for him. What a surprise. But I just want to come back to this point you also made around forecasts and not trusting them. Are you going to have a word with some heads of strategy so they stop making that particular? Can your next book be about that, please? Because it really helps a lot of us out there, quite frankly, in trying to persuade people not to start hanging on this stuff. Good grief.
Well, I think the thing that I would also kind of say is that one other thing that frustrates me as well is that I see a lot of people that are, I mean, there is a lot of good people in the service and experience sort of space trying to do really, really good work. And one of the challenges that I see that they're facing though is that you end up building all this kind of like student stuff and it doesn't feel like it's working and you're not getting the acknowledgement kind of like from the business around or the help and support from the business about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a key gap there. And it's something I've talked to different sort of people in the industry about is that if you ask them, you go, so you're involved in kind of building a better sort of like customer experience or, delivering better service. And I asked them, I say, okay, fine. So can you tell me what the business strategy is or the commercial strategy or the market strategy and stuff? And they'd be like, yeah, fine. We'll kind of rattle that off, right? Because it's all well communicated. And you go like, brilliant. Thank you. That's amazing. And then you go, now, can you tell me what your experience strategy is and how it is linked to the business strategy and how does it enable it and support it?
Yeah.
And most people,
yeah,
there's a blank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this kind of like, it's almost like you end up with these kind of two train carriages that are just uncoupled, right? And it's like, you kind of wonder kind of why people that haven't figured out kind of like, you've got to almost like make people successful. You got to figure out how everything kind of fits.
Yeah.
It has to be aligned and things. It also kind of makes me wonder whether or not that kind of uncoupling, kind of like misalignment or not connecting, unconnectedness is one of the reasons why we end up with these, Frankenstein-esque sort of customer experiences that we end up getting.
Yeah.
This kind of like mix between the physical and digital that doesn't quite make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing is like, I would think when you go back to the sort of forecasting thing, if we sometimes we have to get okay with the idea that the forecast is going to be wrong, but that shouldn't stop us building a picture of what we want to achieve in the future and why.
So I have another question that leads on from that, which actually comes from the recording of the podcast with Jean Bliss.
Okay.
You were talking with her about leaders adopting all of this, CEOs being championing of this. And the thing that I took that really stood out for me, which we all know, but this whole thing around silos don't organically unite. And what I traditionally see is a customer experience strategy being produced over here, which hasn't got that holistic view. So that's why you still get topsy-turvy and you don't get this improvement overall. I mean, what do you say to that?
I mean, I think I'm sort of experiencing some of that in a project I'm currently working on kind of right now, and which I can't really talk about, but it's like I can see some of that sort of stuff kind of going on.
Yeah.
And there's some simple truths right in there, which is, you know what? Don't send somebody an email get off your backside, pick up the phone, or get out from behind your desk and walk around and connect to talk to people. Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, kind of like, if you want to get shit done, it's you don't, if you want to call a policeman or the fire brigade or an ambulance, don't send them an email, do you? You pick up the bloody phone, or you go and see them, because that's what we know for certain that happens. Is like, when we're in trouble, we need real people to show up, real time, face to face, right? Because that's how, excuse my language, shit works.
It's also how it gets done.
Well, exactly. And it's like, it's all about relationships. Big caps, repeat, kind of ad nauseum. It's lazy to think that we can go, oh, if we send that email, that somebody's going to read our email and kind of absorb it and kind of do all these kind of like, do these things. If we actually want to make real change, we've actually got to talk to people.
Yeah.
And listen, and back to your point, we've got to listen to them as well, and be willing to change and kind of like understand what we need to do to help them kind of be successful, and so on and so forth. And all this is hard work.
Yeah. Well, is it? Because I'm now switching it around a bit, and I'm looking at CX Punk. I'm going to ask you one quick question before we go into any more about the book. But in this phenomenal book, there is a section in here which is the answers are right in front of you, and what you're saying there is 30 minutes and a tray of donuts, and actually here you have 80% of the answers right there. Do it. I'm going to let you explain that story, Adrian.
So that was a story that was told to me by a friend of mine, kind of Joel. It was told to him by somebody else, and it was about a bank that went through a redesign of its mortgage process. And one of the first things that they did as part of that, they kind of hired a data and analytics team to come in and gather all the data, crunch all the numbers, and kind of identify the top 10 kind of customer kind of problems, the things that they needed to improve. And they were like going, fine, that all kind of went well. And then in the middle of that process, some bright spark kind of went and gathered 10 frontline agents together one lunchtime in a room, had a tray of donuts, bunch of teas and coffees, told their line managers to bugger off so then they could kind of like speak freely. And in 30 minutes, collectively, these group of 8 to 10 people with a bit of facilitation that had been able to agree on what they thought the top 10 problems were. Now, they did that in 30 minutes and at the cost of, a tray of donuts and some teas and coffees. About 6 weeks later, the analytics kind of team came back with all their kind of their graphs and their kind of charts and everything else, only to prove that the frontline agents were 80% correct. And so the question you've got to ask yourself is, are you willing to spend tens of thousands of pounds and hundreds of kind of, man and woman hours crunching these numbers to be 100% correct? Or are you willing just to kind of go down and buy a tray of donuts, some teas and coffees, and spend half an hour over lunchtime and be 80% correct, and then get going? And then all the soft benefits that come thereof by, the idea of like, oh, you've asked somebody's opinion. You've made them feel important. You've listened to them. All of that kind of like, all that sort of like stuff. You've kind of like, you've acknowledged all of those different things. So this kind of multifaceted, multidimensional sort of thing. This is the problem when we get into, we talk about building a more adaptive, responsive kind of organizations. But actually what we end up kind of doing, when you end up going down this kind of thing where I go, the organization isn't kind of changing if all we're doing is we're hiring in some hard guns to crunch these numbers to try and produce the answer. All it is 20th century production line economics, kind of organizational sort of thinking, kind of writ large. You know what? We're trying to build more human organizations. So rather than actually doing this, why don't we need to do this? Yeah. And actually, it's not about the technology. It's actually become, as the technology expands and improves and innovates and all these different sort of things, I think increasingly conversation is dominated by technology, but it's also needs to become increasingly about the human beings that are at the beginning and the end and the middle of the process, because ultimately it's human beings that do stuff, right? And human beings that buy stuff.
That's right.
But surprise, newsflash.
And you may have said this to me. I can't remember who said this to me. And if it is you, sorry, I forgot. But the whole thing around our species and humans knowing where they fit, the need for human connection, the need for understanding one another is more important than ever. And yet technology is getting all of the voice. When do you think this might change?
Yeah, so I don't know if that was me or not, probably not. But I completely agree with it. It's like we're social beings, and we shouldn't ignore that. And we yearn for connection.
Yeah.
They kind of I don't know if this is right, but it's like, do you know the second largest fear that we have? The first one apparently is spiders, arachnophobia. Right.
I get that.
And there's all sorts of other ones, which is I think the strangest one is kind of emetophobia. If you've ever heard of that.
No. What's that?
It's basically the fear of being sick.
Oh, right.
Well, kind of a projectile vomit, kind of like, it's not an image that you really want, because like emet. Yeah. Right. Anyway, the second biggest fear apparently that we have is, on a very general kind of basis, is social phobia.
Okay.
And social phobia is kind of like includes this whole thing about the fear of kind of like speaking in public, the fear of missing out, the fear of not connecting, not being liked, disliked, not being loved, all this, the different things, like being lonely, all that sort of like type of stuff, all kind of fits in that sort of thing, because we are social beings. We want to be that. We're afraid of all of these sort of things, being rejected, not being liked, not being connected, all these different sort of things. It dominates our lives.
So a quick question relating back to customer experience, and this is a loaded question, but do you think that people's desire to do 120%, to go the extra mile, to do the extraordinary for customers, is therefore becoming more and more difficult because of this second fear, this second ranking fear, it's social phobia? Do you think there's anything in that?
So I think there's also there's an idea around, we talk about this idea of exceeding expectations, sort of like kind of delivering the wow moment, doing all these kind of things. I'm like going, please stop. Yeah, it's in large part it's a waste of time. And now I need to qualify this, is like we focus on the kind of the extra, as it were, because it becomes a distraction. That stuff is kind of new and exciting and sexy and fun and all these different stuff, doing the nice stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a bit like building a fancy roof on your house, and then building your house out of polystyrene or Lego bricks or whatever. No disrespect to Lego bricks. I'm pretty sure living in a Lego house would be awesome. But it's a bit like going, can we please focus on doing the basics and doing the basics kind of brilliantly? Because here's also the other thing that we kind of like, from a psychological, very human perspective, is I've seen research that has said that the neurological payoff between helping us avoid uncertainty, risk, disappointment, failure, all of that type of stuff is between 5 and 12 times greater than any joy, surprise, or delight initiative. Mm-hmm. And you think about it this way, and it's a kind of really, really simple way of thinking about it, is like, that makes so much sense if you just take time to think about it. Because what is our first primal instinct? Is to survive, right? And so if you think about things that we would think about, that put in that box around threats to survival, which would include risk, uncertainty, disappointment, failure, those are the things, if you help me avoid that, that's why the insurance market is so huge. We don't like bad stuff to happen. And when bad stuff happens, we like people to come and save us, right? And so when people can come and make us feel safe and secure and certain and everything else, that's brilliant. So it's a bit like going, I've got a thing in the book which says, you know, it's like this long acronym, and it says it's not a town in Wales, but it basically says, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, right? And that is at the, you know, and we forget that. We forget that the bedrock of many of our relationships are built on, you know, trust and credibility, and that a lot of that comes from just basic keeping your word. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, and if you do it and you keep doing it and you show up and you show up and you show up, you build this kind of huge foundation of trust and reliance and belief and everything else. Now, that takes hard work and discipline and commitment. And here's a kind of another side note. It's a bit of a kind of unusual fact, but we'll have people running for their browsers now. Do you know what happens when you type relentless.com into your browser?
No. What happens when you type relentless.com into your browser?
It redirects to Amazon.
I've just done it. And actually, I tell you what, let me do this exactly now. So if I just come out of here, let's actually do this as a demonstration right now. So let's have, sorry, bear with me one moment.
How on earth do you know this, Adrian?
I don't recall where I learned this, but I tell you what, it tells you everything that you need to know about Amazon.
Yep. I've put it on the screen. It's next to you right now on the screen, Adrian. It's exactly what happens. Relentless.com directs or diverts back to Amazon.
And that's the kind of point. It's like, and that's one of the reasons why Amazon is doing so well. I mean, and doing incredibly well, and sort of leading a lot of these initiatives in the field in a lot of these areas. Whether you like them or not, relentless is one of those things that they have at their very, very core. They're relentless about the pursuit of some of this sort of stuff. And doing the basics well requires that, you know, discipline and commitment and this attitude about being relentless about it, because you're not going to get it right every time, but you're just going to keep on keeping on, because you know that the foundation is as important, if not more important, than any fancy sort of thing that you're going to build on the top of it, because that's the thing that will change. The foundation is the thing that will take care of 80-90% of everything. Amazon are also a really good example for me as a consumer of incredible customer service at every single level that I engage with that business as an organization. Since I started this business last year, I would say 95% of the kit that I've purchased has come from Amazon. And some of those items have been wrong. Some of those items haven't worked. I've had a problem with a couple of deliveries. But in every single instance, there has been a no quibble, we'll just fix it. We get it done. There was an item left on the doorstep that someone obviously took. I phoned them. They said, well, we did deliver it. And they sent me another one anyway. It's just at every level and every engagement I've ever had with Amazon, it has actually been relentless. It's consistent. Yeah, and so anyway, it's an interesting kind of side fact, kind of like the thing that you wouldn't know. It's sort of the thing that it'd probably be the ultimate kind of like pub quiz question for the 21st century.
I'm gonna jump in again actually, because Laura, probably to an earlier point, has made quite a long comment, but I'm going to read it for you both because I want your opinions on it. She's written, I often feel that employees are empowered to put a barrier between us and the customer. This is often a top-down belief system. I observe it to be to get the sales in, do well and do better. When I challenge this status quo with my direct reports when they're dealing with customers, I start with the question of, but you're a customer, right? Flights, hotels, etc. How do you feel if you're judged inappropriately as a default? How do you feel when you make a complaint or you have a query and you're automatically put on the naughty step? They're often incandescent when they're personally on the brunt of poor customer experience, but in a work environment, by protection of a belief system and processes, they are feeding the beast. I mean, that's a whole show in itself.
Yeah, well, okay, so Laura, I think you're absolutely you're absolutely spot on, and it's a bit like I call it the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome. It's like, you know, we wake up as regular people, and then, you know, we might kind of be consumers and stuff, and then we go into kind of across the threshold of work, as it were, and then you turn into this monster. That then it's acceptable to do all this crap to people that you wouldn't find acceptable to yourself. So you're almost like changing the rules. It's the rules of the environment, and that kind of frustrates me. But what that does do is we are all conditioned by generally it's not really about the people, it's more about the system and the environment that they're in, right? And so you have to ask yourself, okay, what does that mean? What does that say about the corporate culture? What does it say about incentives and rewards and how the business thinks about customers? You know, what is it willing to do? What behavior? What are the written rules, but also what are the unwritten rules in your culture in terms of as Laura says, your belief system, as it were, and. But I think I think it's about two things. I think it's about the environment and what it produces. Because I have a belief that pretty much most people would do the right thing given the right sort of conditions, right? And so you have to ask yourself this way. But then it goes back to that whole thing about social beings, right? And how in history we have got so many different parts of history where we've shown that people can do incredibly bad things but not be bad people. Yeah. Right? So it's like funny. So you have to think about the environment, the conditions that we put people into. And so you have to think about, okay, what's the culture, what are the rules, the unwritten rules, what is the behavior that's getting displayed, and how does that influence people? And then also you have to then think about, okay, what behaviors or things are we rewarding? And sorry to get a bit dark on us, but it's sort of like a human history thing. We forget all this stuff.
Yeah. She's followed up with stakeholder buy-in of customer experience top down.
Yeah, no, completely. I think it's like, and I would start by the fact that, if you get that the top down sort of like the top down experience. I actually think that one of the things that you've got to do, one of the key things that you've got to do is you've got to try and get senior leadership across the board closer to your customers. And as close as you can get them to points where, where customer experience is either really, really bad and therefore somebody's screaming at you, or really, really great when customers are crying and weeping and wanting to hug you. Because here's the thing that I think is like, if I think about service and experience, it's like a bell curve, right? We end up focusing on the stuff that's in the middle, right? But greatness happens at the edges, right? About how we respond when things go catastrophically wrong. And what does it take to do something which exceptionally well? Because that's the things that we tell stories about. That's the stuff that sticks out. That's the stuff that we remember. But we don't stress test our experience to understand what happens on the edges. Now, if we can get more and more leaders in front of some of those two things, and guess what? They're going to want to be over here when things are nice and rosy and going, oh, Gabby's going, whoop, whoop, you're amazing. And then you're going to have to put them in a hard hat and then get them in front of people when they are raging. Because then they're going to get to the point when they will viscerally understand what it means. Yeah. And then it becomes this thing around pride. Right? You've almost got to get people that they get to be, they become, they've got to become emotionally involved in what the organization is doing, and almost to take responsibility for all of the stuff that's going on. And that, when one thing goes wrong and somebody gets upset, then they should take that kind of personally.
I think that's hugely powerful. When I've worked in organizations that perceive that they're already doing customer experience very well, having a few interviews, the whole Vox Pop thing where you have a short clip with a customer who just says it as it is, and you play this to these guys, these men and women who perceive that everything is fine, and then you watch their facial expression and you watch their body language as if to say, nah, this can't be. This what really here? This thing. And then utter embarrassment, and then anger, and then action. And I think that it's great to see survey results. It's great to see the written word, but there is nothing more powerful than putting customers in front, either through film or physically bringing them in, to actually put them in front of some of these key players to show them, here's the emotional contagion. You've got to be picking this up. You've got to be feeling like you'll be seeing it right in front of you.
I think there's an old quote from a film, I can't remember which film it is, where somebody says, it's nothing personal, it's only business. And I can't remember the film reference. But here's the thing, I guess that right now, the reality is that we talk about service and experience and the kind of, the area that we're in and the challenge that we face. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It isn't just business anymore, it is personal.
Yeah.
Is it from The Godfather?
I think it might be, yeah.
I'm literally just looking it up now.
That's not you winning at the pub quiz. You just Googled that.
Yeah, it was. It was. It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business. It's Michael Corleone in The Godfather.
But actually, kind of like for leaders, I think we need to make it more and more personal.
Yeah.
If they want to get it, if they want to really, really get it, then that's what it's going to take. Now, here's the thing: is that many people are not going to like that, and are going to find that extremely challenging. Putting yourself in front of taking responsibility for some of those things, making yourself feel kind of vulnerable, kind of being open ears, exposing yourself to that sort of, that level of feedback, as it were, is going to make people feel extremely uncomfortable. In many cases, and I would suggest, get over it and suck it up, because that's what the role requires. You can't talk about wanting to do this and deliver great service and experience for your customers because that's really important and it matters and everything else, and not be willing to do the work, and including the personal work that it's going to require.
I'm going to jump in and self-plug here. If you're watching at work right now and you've got customers that you think, actually, I'd like to put them on camera, I'd like to give them that opportunity. That's exactly why I'm here. Dominic@Streeem.com. Do get in touch.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug there,
There's no shame.
Let's do another shameless plug. Tell us about the format of this beautiful thing, Adrian.
Okay, so the format that you've got there is the paperback version.
Sandra, sorry, can you hold that in the middle of your screen so that yeah, there you go.
There you go. So that is the kind of paperback version of Punk CX, which came out in June. This is a different shape. Can
you do the same, Adrian? Can you stick that in the middle of the camera? Just there you go. Perfect. And I'm going to do one of those things, like the Chad thing. I'm going to put a link on the screen right now because I created just a link that makes it very easy for people to go find that on Amazon. So that's on the screen right now.
So this is the new version. No, this one is just in the process of being released. It is the original concept. It is kind of hardback, 7-inch by 7-inch, kind of like kind of size, as a nod to the kind of the vinyl single. It is going to be released on Amazon in the next few days. it is going to have a ridiculously high list price because it is a limited edition. And so it's a bit like Stella Artois, reassuringly expensive. This is unapologetically expensive. But here's the thing. I have a newsletter, which is the Punk CX newsletter. You can find it on my website, which is adrianswinscoe.com. What I'm going to do is the people that are on that kind of website, is that, if people sign up for the newsletter, I'm going to be sending out a note in the next couple of days to say, if you want one of these, like one of these limited editions, then just reply to the email and say, I want one. And we will do a group buying thing because I can get major discounts, and I will so the price will come down a lot, probably by about 2/3 of the Amazon list price, and I will then sign them all, number them all, and post them out to wherever you are in the world, so you cover the list price plus kind of postage. Anyway, that's my plug. It's a nice thing. It's good for Christmas and all that sort of stuff.
It's heavy.
Ta-da!
So when I get mine, I'm going to put it in a frame. That's so it doesn't do as much damage as if you throw it, which was your question, Adrian.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this earlier, Sandra, and I do think it's weighty enough that it could possibly go through a window if you threw it out a window. It's got it's almost got semi-brick status.
Try this at home.
I feel like we're full of plugs right now, but Adrian, while you're holding your book in front of your face, I put a link to your book up on the screen, the current book, and as I'm talking right now, I'm going to put an image of your website with a link to your website on the screen so that no one has any excuse to miss any of this. So yeah, www.adrianswinscoe.com. You can see his website on the screen right now. And if you want to buy his book, then the link to do so is also on the screen right now.
So Adrian,
and you might not like it, by the way, because here's the thing: it doesn't pull any punches. It's slightly profane in places. It is, and I've been describing it as a visual slap in the face for the customer experience industry.
But what's not to like? Because there's even a tear out section for you to give to your CEO to say, step up or ship out.
Exactly.
You're making the world a place, Adrian, is what I should say. Now, Adrian,
there you go.
One of our speakers on the Applied Customer Experience course. So we're hugely excited about that. The delegates certainly asked him, or shed loads of questions around some of the issues they were having, and Adrian very gracefully gave phenomenal answers that I don't think people were expecting, and many of them tried them out, including Laura May, who's actually on this call. So that's super exciting for January of next year. Adrian will be joining us as one of the many speakers on our session. So thank you for that as well. Any last recommendations, Adrian, for those of us who are still learning a great deal from you? Any last recommendation before Christmas we should try out?
I don't know.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
So one of the things I was thinking about was around constraints drive creativity. I totally love that. So I'm kind of putting words into your mouth around what people might want to try out before Christmas. I'm certainly going to be giving that as a brief to some of my undergrads, because I think that there's something beautiful about that instruction.
Yeah, I think the kind of thing is that we've fallen into a trap where we think more is more. So it's almost a bit like, if we work longer hours, then we'll get more done. And you're like going, well, actually, here's the interesting thing. It's like we respond to, we're really bad at adding crap into our day and distractions and everything else, but we do respond to deadlines. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to try and get more done, then constrain your time.
Yeah.
And hold yourself to it.
Yeah.
And be surprised about how things how you respond to things. Notice how you respond to things. if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And I think that that's definitely something I'm going to be considering when I speak to potential clients, when I speak to definitely the students that I teach, because I think we fall into this hole of FOMO, fear of missing out. And I think that means that we try and grab hold of everything, coming back to your earlier point around, you know what, you can't do everything well, you've got to focus. And I think giving yourself permission to do just one brilliant thing within a time-bound time, just see how that works out for you. I think, if anything, if I were to put a recommendation in your head to answer that question, that would be the one that I would pick. Try it out between now and Christmas.
And on that, I would say that the one thing that you would probably, the other reference I would add into there, and as a bit of a hack tip to that man, is take a look at the books and the materials and the work that was done by Edward de Bono back in the day, and he talked about his different thinking caps.
Yeah, 6 hats.
And it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you wanted to get a bit of background around sort of creative thinking and, you know, giving yourself permission and everything else, then you should probably look into some of that sort of stuff as well.
So I'll make sure that some of these all of the links we've talked about are included in the deck that we'll send out, so that no one misses out on some of these brilliant references.
Yeah, there's been a few where I have been able to. I've grabbed screens and put them out on this feed, so people have been able to see. I've put links to Adrian's book. Actually, I haven't put the link to your. Was the other book How to Wow, Adrian? I got that right. Yeah, I'll put a link out to that in the comments below, so that people have got all of these. Oh, there you go. 2 copies magically appeared on the screen. Sandra, keep that there just for a moment. We'll hold that. Oh, there you go. That's both of Adrian's books right there that you've got. How to Wow and Punk CX. Thank you very much for having those ready. Well done. So yeah, we'll get all of these links and any other references that you've made out, because I think it's really useful for people to have access to that. So.
Okay.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
You're very welcome. It's been fascinating. Yet again, it's been fascinating. And to have a jargon-free conversation about this subject is brilliant.
Well, I mean, again, it comes back to the question right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Is, you know, can we challenge ourselves? Maybe that's the thing, Sandra, between now and Christmas.
Yeah.
For people that are kind of thinking about this sort of stuff, or into the new year, is can we, we're in a natural time to reflect and to plan for next year. Mm-hmm. You know, can we think about talking about or describing how we improve our service or experience in the organizations that we work in or work for, without using any of the jargon or any of the lexicon that goes into that normal sort of like stuff?
Yeah.
Just to see how it feels. And if that makes us pay a bit more attention to kind of what we say and how we say it, then who knows what we'll learn.
Or achieve.
Yeah, indeed.
Sandra, any parting words for Adrian? I'm very aware that we're sitting right on an hour, so we've done very well to keep this one a lot closer to the expected time, as opposed to the hour and 20 that we've run the last couple of weeks. I'll let you take it just for a moment.
Just, Adrian, just to say thank you for your refreshing view, as always. You can expect me to be responding to that email about the books. At least that's definitely one in the bag, even though I have my copy. Maybe to break a window, perhaps. And just to say, you know, really love your work. I know I've been getting WhatsApp messages from people saying, "We love Adrian." I'm like, all right. LinkedIn Live, for goodness sake. So thanks for your time, and just keep doing what you're doing, because we just think we really need it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it.
Adrian, thank you very much for taking an hour out of your day. This is experimental, and it's messing around with technology that we have access to that not an awful lot of people do. And the most important thing for me was that we find a way to continue to deliver value to people outside of my network, and actually just talk about subjects that are so important in business right now. So for the hour that you've given us, I'm very, very grateful. It's been a pleasure to actually talk to you, and I hope we get to do it again soon.
The pleasure's been all mine. Thank you kind of for setting it up. Thank you, Sandra, for kind of being a great sort of like interviewer, just team me up to rattle off a whole bunch of kind of ideas about some of this sort of stuff, because I could kind of chew the cud on this sort of stuff all day. But it's always a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you, Adrian. Feel free to leave. Sandra, going to keep you just for 2 seconds, and then we'll catch you soon. Thank you. There we go. Show number 3, Sandra.
Oh, do you know, these are getting better and better as we go along. I started mine with just me. It's good, isn't it? Quality of debate that Adrian brings is really needed. I worry sometimes that we just get sucked into this vacuum and we're all just whirling around. The questions he raises, the points he has to make are invaluable. So I'm over the moon that he's going to have some time in January to join us again. Yeah, absolutely.
Now let's talk about that, because I haven't got a slide to put up on the screen.
It's all right.
So while you were talking just now, I was frantically rooting around trying to find a link to Pearson Business School, and then had to search for your course. And I now have a link to put on the screen right now. It's a shortened version of the link. So if people go to go.stream.com/ACX, it will take you through to a page on Pearson Business School, which is this one right here, which I'm going to put on the screen now, which talks about the Applied Customer Experience 5-day course in 2 stages. Sandra, you've got the dates. You know what you're talking about, so I will let you take the stage.
So first 3 days in January, the second days in March. The reason why we do it that way is that you get the key learning in those 3 days in Jan. Then you get a period of time where you can test out some of the things that you've learned. And then we come back together in March to test, how was it? What did you learn? What did you learn from one another? There'll be more speakers in that second tranche too, but it's really just giving you the breathing space to reflect. As I say, Adrian's one of the speakers. We had Richard on last week, who's also one of the speakers. We've got Nicola from Volvo coming up soon. She's also one of the speakers. The great thing here is that you get to have the one-to-one conversation with these guys. You get to pose all sorts of challenges to them, and they can miraculously serve up a bunch of stuff in addition to some of the academic stuff that I can provide. So it's all good.
And at least one person that's watching today, only because I know this to be true, at least one person that's watching today has actually done the course.
Woo! Next week, right?
Sorry?
We're back next week.
We are. Now, we've got a bit of a change because of schedule change that I've got. So we're actually coming back on Monday, aren't we?
Yeah, Monday.
Who have we got?
We've got Laura May, who is Director of Customer Success and Event Operations from Hanson Wade. She's a superstar, learning as she goes, but actually she knows shed loads already. And we're going to be sharing a conversation about how you learn this stuff, how you get to grips with it, what it's like to hit the ground running when you come from a different type of role. How do you know what's right to do? So an hour's worth of Laura's experience, my own personal experience, and loads of other case studies, which we hope will be really valuable. So that's Monday at 11 a.m.
It is indeed. That's Monday this week, which is the 18th. And then we're not going to be here next Thursday. And then we will be back the following week, I think on Thursday, but we'll put posters out and we'll put links out to when we, information out as to when we're going to be live. But yeah, Monday 18th. I haven't got a graphic because we literally only sorted this out just before we came on. Monday the 18th at 11 a.m. with Laura May, who is Director of Customer Experience and Event Operations at Hanson Wade, which is I'm really looking forward to. It'd be really nice to, and it's a completely different perspective on this subject, right?
Yeah, it's very, very relevant at this time of year, because very often people are kind of going into Christmas, they're thinking about New Year, they're thinking about, well, what will I do for 2020? That all sounds about sci-fi. It's really kind of reassuring people that there's stuff out there. Actually, a lot of stuff you can serve yourself. It's just helping people find the right resources.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sandra, it is time to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye to you. I'm just going to wrap up the show and then I will speak to you very soon. But we'll be back Monday 18th at 11 a.m. with Laura May. So thank you very much for today. It's been brilliant again. Bye-bye. Yet another great show. Sandra, I love having on here and being able to do this with her. And Adrian, what a guest. Completely refreshing view on a subject that I know is very close to him and to Sandra, and actually to the good majority of people watching. Thank you very much for watching. As I said just now a couple of times, we'll be back on Monday the 18th. That's Monday coming at 11 a.m. With Laura May from Handsome Wade. I'm just going to play out, because this is ultimately this. I'm doing all of this to not only to provide value, but also to promote my business, and that was the founding reason why we've kind of tried to find different ways of talking to the audience on LinkedIn. But ultimately, this is still a promo opportunity for me. So I'm going to sign off simply by saying thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to play the promo video for Streeem, which is my company. We are the UK's first iPhone-only multi-camera live stream and event video production company. And if you need our services, if you want to talk about video production in any way, shape or form, drop me an email at dominic@streeem.com. It would be very nice to talk to you, and I will see you on Monday. Hi, I'm Dominic. I run Streeem. We're the UK's first iPhone-only multi-camera live stream and event video production company. Rather than just talk about what we do, I thought I'd show you as well. First though, we need to pack this. Let's go. Everything I'm trying to build with Streeem comes down to one thing: efficiency. That efficiency comes in a variety of forms. From a kit perspective, we're more efficient. We've minimised the equipment we carry, and we can get everything we need for a 4 or 5 camera shoot into one small hand luggage case. From a time perspective, we're more efficient. The fact the kit is so small and everything is wireless makes us blisteringly quick to get set up. From a team perspective, we're more efficient. All our cameras can be mounted on remote controlled gimbals, so we don't need any more than 2 people on most jobs we do. From a cost perspective, we're more efficient. The minimised kit, the ease of transport, the speed of setup, the fact that everything is shot and edited live, and that we don't charge per camera channel, all of that makes us a more cost-efficient option. And from a delivery perspective, we're more efficient. Everything is shot and edited live. You know, we can deliver recorded content in as little as 30 minutes, which breaks new boundaries in event and corporate video production. We're the first company in the UK to be using technology in this way to disrupt the video production world, and I love that me and my team at Streeem are spearheading that.